Welcome to Parent Coaches Unleashed with Carrie and Jessica, where no topics are taboo or off limits. Join us as we let loose and discuss the real, raw feelings about parenting.
In each episode, we will bring you heartfelt discussions, real-life stories, and special guests that will both entertain you and encourage community so no one feels alone in their parenting journey.
Thanks so much for listening. Now let's start the show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our latest episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed. So, Carrie and I, when we talk about our guests and we think about who we're going to have on the show, we talk about all different people that can help and that can relate to parents. And parents aren't always called mom and dad. And sometimes a parent or someone who plays the role of a parent is not someone who's birthed their child. I'm talking specifically about teachers here. Teachers typically spend more time with your child than you do in some cases. So today we have a very special guest, Chelsea Briggs. She is a teacher at Stoneman Douglas, and Carrie's son had the pleasure of having her, and they formed a very special bond. So I'm going to allow Carrie to introduce Chelsea.
So first off, welcome, but I have an issue calling you Chelsea because my in our home, right, it was always Miss Briggs, Miss Briggs, Miss Briggs. And now that Ryan, who had you as a junior, is now a graduate of college, now you're just Briggs. So Mrs. She's now married too, and there's an additional name. We won't go into that. But anyway, welcome.
Hi, guys.
Mrs. Chelsea Briggs.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
We're so glad that you're with us today.
Oh, so happy to be here.
We want to jump right in, and if you could tell us what has been your journey to becoming a high school teacher? Like, what led you there?
Yes. So, well, originally being young, you always have these aspirations in life, right? That what you want to be, what you want to do. And I kind of always knew that I wanted to help people, but I just didn't know how I was going to go about that. I always knew that I wanted to be a high school teacher. Well, maybe not high school, but just a teacher in general. A lot of that came from I had an amazing fifth grade group of teachers that just made me love just being in their classroom. And I felt very comforted by them. And then once I got to high school, I was really fortunate to have a 12th grade English teacher who really pushed me into kind of thinking and going beyond just the textbook. And I think that allowed me to see that the world can be taught differently and through different expressions, the different viewpoints. And once I saw that, I kind of realized like that was my journey in life to kind of go into the world of being able to help others and make them think maybe just a little differently and expand them on beyond just the textbook tests, all that. I really enjoyed that. So it kind of led me down that path. I was actually, funny enough, I was a bartender all through college. And I thought that personally prepared me to deal with kids because like, if you can deal with drunk people, you can deal with kids. The same amount of patience. But I started off as a paraprofessional for 3 years at an elementary school where I had a really amazing mentor, Nicole Boadonna. She was awesome. And she really showed me how to stay organized, how to kind of grow that bond. And once I left the elementary school, funny enough, when I applied to Stoneman Douglas, it was my first job that I ever applied to. And I got the job because of my old fifth grade teacher. She knew the principal at Stoneman Douglas. They were college roommates. And I got it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I actually just called her to pick her brain about how do you apply to high school. And then she's like, hey, come in tomorrow. You have an interview.
Oh my God, that's
Which hilarious, right? So I
Great
go,
lesson for kids also. Your
yes,
connections say
you
so
just,
much
yes,
about who you are.
absolutely. Yes. You just don't know who knows who.
Yep.
It's amazing. So I go in for the interview, and funny enough, I actually don't get the job originally.
Ah.
They called me and said, "Hey, sorry, we gave the position to someone else." And then a week later, I don't know what happened to that person, but they couldn't do it. So I ended up getting the job right after.
Had you still been interviewing in the process? Were there any
No,
other
it was my first interview. I just wanted to give it a go.
Okay, that's
So
great.
just wanted to feel out the water, see how hard it was to kind of get into the position. I was going to go on job fairs and do all that, but they ended up calling me a week later once I kind of set up other things, and they're like, we would love to offer you the job.
Now, did you have any second thought like, "Ooh, they didn't want me the first time," or you just so excited, like, a job?
I was a young teacher at the time. I just turned 26 and I was just right out of college.
Yeah.
I was like, first job
Yeah.
experience.
Okay, so now you go into the classroom.
Yes.
Was it everything you thought it would be? Were there like, "Oh my gosh, nobody ever taught me this?" What was your initial reaction to being in the classroom?
Yeah, it was like being thrown into a lion's den. You have all these kids kind of looking at you like, oh, you know everything you're supposed to know. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm an imposter. I don't know anything. I just felt like it was just like that first day job jitter where they're like, they're going to see through you. You don't know anything
Yeah.
about anything. So, and I honestly, going to school, I had an English degree background. So I didn't get all the observation hours like as most teachers got, like when you're going through that degree program. So I did a few educational classes. I knew I wanted to teach, but I was kind of focusing in one area where I didn't get that extra initial like jump in before test the waters beforehand. So this is me just as like a teacher's aide going into a classroom saying, "Okay, figure it out." And I did. So
I just wanna say that I am, my master's, my undergrad, I taught for 10 years, and
wow.
no amount of schooling, nothing, there's no class, nothing prepares you except for the experience of walking into the classroom. There's no there's no class that could teach you what to expect when you walk into a classroom.
No. Absolutely.
So, was your first classroom junior? So, 16-year-olds, right?
Yeah, so they originally told me, funny enough, they said, "We're probably gonna put you in a ninth grade class." I said, "Great. Give me the
Yeah.
babies. This is perfect." And then they said, "Oh, actually, no, we're gonna have to switch you over to juniors." I'm like, "Oh, they're gonna eat me up alive." I think what really helped me in that scenario was before I started teaching high school, I was a para for high functioning students in the kindergarten classroom. It was a blended class, so we had a lot of kids who had issues of just behavior, and there was a lot of patience that goes into that. So I felt like that kind of prepared me for anyone who would,
Right.
come at me with anything that was like negative or
And now, I mean, at that time, right, you were only 10 years older than your students. So, do you think that that was an advantage for you or a disadvantage?
Yeah, I mean, thank goodness I wasn't one of those teachers that had just graduated from college and then getting straight into that kind of environment because I think that would have put me in a more of a disadvantage. But I
Yeah.
think that I had gotten enough years in working with at least parents.
Yeah.
So it helped me at least gauge, okay, like this is what kids want to know. This is what they don't want to know. And then on top of that, my brother and sister are 11 and 12 years younger than I am. So by the time I started teaching, they were still in high school.
Okay.
So I kind of just took what my mom was doing and how she reacted to things. And I tried to apply that to my teaching of, okay, like they don't want to know this, but they want to know this. And, just being on top of,
I think that's a great segue into our next discussion. What about the parents? Do you see them involved at the high school level? Would you like to see them more involved? Wh- What do you think?
Or less involved?
well, we have different types of parents. I think from what I've noticed, especially in the age group that I teach, you see parents that aren't as hands on anymore. And then you have parents that might as well be in my classroom. Uh,
Really, still so it's interesting because at 16, they have a year and a half, 2 years left before they're going to
Yes.
college. So,
Yes.
I know as a parent, when my kids are in high school, our job was always to teach them to begin to advocate for themselves. There have been times when we've had to step in, but now you're saying you have parents that they might as well be in the classroom with you. What is that like? Can you give us an example? No names, but can you give us
Yeah,
an
of
example?
course. So, you've heard of the term, I'm assuming, like the helicopter parent.
Yes.
We've done episodes on that. Yes.
Yes, just checking on, well, now it's Focus, right? We had Pinnacle, now it's Focus. Just always be making sure that their kid's on top of their stuff. And now we use the terminology, the lawnmower parent, right? Where they just take away the debris, no problems for their kids. So the kind of parents that I will see, especially more of on the extreme end, is just the parents who are doing the kids' work, and then they get mad at you if you grade their paper and it's not an A, like things
So
that
wait,
you.
pause for a second. Can you clearly tell when the parent has done the work versus the student?
Oh, yeah. The first thing you have to say is, "What's that word mean?"
Got it.
And then when they get the grade that they do, the parent will come at, "Well, I have my master's degree in English, and I just don't understand why my student didn't get an A on this, and I helped them." And you're just like, "But I didn't ask you to do it."
Do you call the kids out on it and the parents?
Well, that's where the line gets a little sticky, because as much as you want to call a parent out for just doing the work, you really truly don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So I can't
Right.
just accuse a parent of saying, "Well, you did this for them." But you'll have kids who admit that their parents do it for them.
Right.
And you're like, "Why would you tell me that?"
Are they proud that the parent does the work for them, or are they ashamed? Like,
I just
where
don't think they care, and I think that's really why the biggest issue that we've been seeing is that if it's not something that they care about, or it's not something that, consumes their day to day, if their parents are willing to do it, they kinda look at you like, "Well, it is what it is." And you don't have anyone, especially now that you know that the parent is kind of on their side with this, you really have no one to really complain to about it, because it's not like you can say, "Well, their work was done by someone else, it was done by you, so I can't even complain to you about it," because
right.
you would not, like, you're taking that, like, responsibility of doing it, so.
So have you ever had to have that conversation with a parent and say, "I know this is your work. I know you've done it." And what has their reaction been? Have you come out and said to them, "What are you doing? Let them be independent. They're a junior. Are you going to college with them? I mean, what are you doing?"
A lot of the parents that I see that do this, a lot of their kids have some type of issue with something. So it could be like they're on a 504 or an IEP. And by that point, there's really nothing I can do, because now there's a legal paper involved. Now, it's
Right.
like there's just, I mean, I've mentioned it. The most you can really do is go to admin. And even that, when once it gets pushed over to them, it's kind of out of my hands. So.
So then let me ask you this. If you could right now say something to all those parents who are doing the work for their kids, what would your message be to them?
Well, my biggest thing is just a disservice to their child. A lot of them don't realize that they don't get that kind of help in college. Professors don't care. You're paying to go there. You're paying to be a part of a system that allows you to get a degree. So all you're doing is setting your child for failure. And as much as I could say that, and we all know that, they kind of have to come to that realization. And
Right.
I see a lot of kids that end up going to a college, and their parents don't realize why they can't finish.
Right.
And that's, again, at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I don't care what your kid does in life. They can do whatever they need to do to be successful in their own way. But I'm like, as long as they're a functioning human in society, that's all we really should be striving for. I just think that they don't realize that in life, you're not gonna be able to do, you can't, like, if your kid waits tables, you're not gonna be there behind them picking up, the busing their tables or doing whatever, like a simple job like that. I mean, that really deters them from becoming successful in any way, shape, or form. So,
And independent.
yeah, they have no sense of independence because they've never had to.
Right.
So you obviously were my son's junior teacher, the luck of the draw. As much as an amazing teacher you were to him, you also became that of a mentor. You encouraged him to join clubs, hold a position in a club, and eventually his senior year became your TA. Now, I love my child. He is super smart, but he is not the strongest English student. So I know probably in your relationship, in your eyes, there were other skills that he had and that was helping him in another way rather than you were just using his really strong English skills. But what is it that you see in your students or as a teacher, like what allows you or where did the idea come from that you can be this mentor and this special person for students in addition to just being their teacher? And did the kids find you or just somehow you find them?
That's a great question. I truly believe that a lot of it has to do with the way that I grew up in my educational background. I mean, I believe it or not, like I grew up having an IEP my entire classroom career, starting from kindergarten on. And because I had teachers that saw that I was lacking in some aspects of my life, especially funny enough, as an English teacher, I am dyslexic. And there are still times where I
Oh,
have to
wow.
hear stuff over and over and over again
Mhm.
so that I can retain it because I have that issue still to this day. But I tell people that if I can do it, you can totally do it. And that's why I believe like I want to be that advocate for some of these kids because I had people who believed in me and got close to me to be able to make me the person I am today. And I just don't think people realize that even if you have a shortcoming, it doesn't mean you can't be successful in any way, shape, or form. So, like, for me, having those advocates and having people that had kind of that back corner, like, rally for me, it really helped me want to do that for my students. So, it's like just finding those things that they're passionate about, especially like in their lives. A lot of their parents have goals for them, which are great. There's nothing wrong with wanting to see your child do something in particular, but I think a lot of them don't realize that some of their kids have passions that they don't even know about or things that they're even interested in. And having one person who just sits there and says, "Wow, that's amazing. That's awesome. You should try that." I think really gives them at least a little bit of hope that it's not just I just have to be good at this one thing. And I've had kids that will just come to school just because they want to be a part of my club. And it just gave them motivation to come to school just to be a part of the club. And they kept their grades up to stay in the club, you know? So it's just finding those passions.
Chelsea, that's such a powerful statement just for parents to just actually listen to their kids and find out what it is they're passionate about. Because a lot of times your vision for your child and their vision are completely different. And if you take the time to listen and see what they're interested in, you'll find so much of parenting, especially as they get older, is just listening and to see what like you said, what they're passionate about. So what is your club? What club do you teach? Or what club do you mentor? Or
I actually run 3 clubs. I'm too many clubs. But, I run, so the one that I'm most passionate about is my LED dance club. Actually, Ryan was in that club for a little bit. We're like an Acro hula hoop style club. We actually performed last night in Fort Lauderdale at this thing called Florida Flow Fest where, the kids get to perform in front of all these flow artists, and it's kind of like Circus Olay, like, that's the kinda style it is. We have light up hula hoops, they do aerial rigs, like we do a lot of performances. And actually have a girl. She still comes back every year to like those events. She's currently pursuing a career for Circus Olay, so she's actually like doing the process of that now. And she told me yesterday,
wait, was she interested in that before your club? Or
yes,
is
so
that
she
what?
was, and then she realized we had a club that kind of went into her interest,
Oh,
and
wow.
she's like, "I would not have come to school if it wasn't for that," and she learned more skills. She actually is a contortionist, and she was able to do
Oh,
all these
wow.
amazing things in the club. I was so sad when she graduated, but she did all these amazing things during the club, and once she did those, she decided that's what she wanted to continue with after school, after she graduated. So she's been training to eventually be in the circus. And
That's so cool.
yeah, it's like you kind of think about like how people get started in that and the fact that we have a club.
She's actually running away and joining the circus.
Yeah, she is actually running away during this.
Minus the running away part.
Yeah, no, everyone knows where she is, so that's good. So,
Okay, and what are the other two clubs? That's amazing. Like,
I also run the dance marathon club with another teacher of mine, Carl Backen. We raise money for the Nicholas Children's Hospital.
that's a big one. A lot of kids are involved with that one.
Yes, it's a big one and it's a lot of work. But last year we raised over $27,000 for the children's hospital.
Wow,
So.
that's awesome.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So we're on that track for this year, and like I said, we do fundraisers throughout the year, trying to raise money, and we do like a lot of community events to get the community involved as well. And then I also run the ISA club, which is the Indian Student Association, and I just got suckered into that one. So they're like, "Can you be our sponsor? You're cool." I was like, "Okay." So
Wow. So, how do you have time for all this? Because then I know, in addition to a teacher, clubs, you're a newlywed, congratulations,
thank you.
and
Congratulations.
you are super, super creative and an artist and do all this creative stuff on the side. So,
My husband asked me the same thing. No, I say all the time, I don't have children, and that's probably a lot of the reason why I'm able to get as much done as I am. If I did have kids, I probably would have slowed a lot of that stuff down. So, I mean, I've definitely take on way too much, but I think it's important that these kids have a high school career that they can look back on and really enjoy the small things. I think that's kind of what makes up your high school career. And I was lucky enough to have teachers that stayed after school and sponsored my stuff. And I just wanted to do the same for others. And as much as it causes me a huge headache at times, I truly do love seeing the smiles on their face and seeing them get to walk the stage with knowing that they were a part of something and not just kind of going through the motions of school, taking tests, trying to get out. They can look back and make friends, have a small community. I think that's so important when you're in high school.
yeah, definitely. So, what feedback do you get from other teachers like that have been in the school system and especially at Stoneman Douglas for, twice the amount of years you've been? Like, what feedback do they give you as a teacher and like how you're going about your career as a teacher? Like, what do you hear?
They do acknowledge that I do a lot, and they tell me all the time, like, take time for yourself because you don't want to lose that
It's a big one.
perspective. It does
Yeah.
catch up to you. And I feel like everyone does the same thing in the beginning of their teaching career. They kind of overdo themselves with kind of trying to show, especially like you try to show your administration, like, okay, look, I'm in it. I care. I want you to see that
I'm
I'm,
a team player,
a
right?
team player. I mean, I made a point last year. I went to every single football game because if a kid invites me to a sport event, I want to make sure that they see me in the stands if they invite me, because that's something that they want to see their teachers go to. I go to prom every year. I go to homecoming every year. I go to graduation. I mean, I do those things, but it does get overwhelming at times. And I do have coworkers that tell me, all right, like, you don't have to go to everything. But I feel like I do owe the kids that in some sense because
And do you see the appreciation from the kids that you show up for them?
I do. I mean, they really do appreciate those things. I mean, sometimes I'll give you a story. I had a girl last year. I don't know what her family dynamic was per se, but there was a situation where her family could not come to graduation. And she was like, "Miss Briggs, like, will you be there for me? Like, just to cheer me on when I walk the stage?" And I said, "Absolutely." And the fact that she just had one person there supporting her, which, like I said, I don't try to unless they tell me, I don't really pry into business of why something's happening or not. But she told me, she's like, I'm just so glad there was someone there to boot
Wow.
me across the stage. And maybe, it broke my heart, but there are kids like that. Like,
Yeah.
either their parents work or they don't have the support system, or, they're just kind of navigating through life and without that guide. And
I'm sure that meant the world to her.
yeah, I mean, you know, she just wanted someone to cheer for her when she walked the stage. So I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
It truly is.
So, what are the biggest challenges that are you seeing in the classroom today? And are they different than when you first started?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I first started, I would say that you still had a group of kids who were motivated to at least aspired for something. I think the generation that we live in today, especially, it doesn't necessarily reward hard work. You don't have to work very hard to be successful. And I think kids kept kind of pushed into that or leaned into that lifestyle. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. A lot of kids do, like, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they're really into like the day trading now. They do a lot of the gambling online because a lot of their, they have access to it.
So, wait, but they're not 18.
They're not
And
18.
so I'm assuming their parents have
Yes.
given permission for them to do so, or are they pretending that they're 18?
It's either one or the other. I'm not again, they talk about it a lot. I try not again, one of those things I don't touch because,
Okay.
you hear a lot of it like, "Oh, well, I'm on my parents' account," or they're probably lying about how old they actually are, but someone has access to that. Their parents are very aware that they're doing this.
Okay.
There's no way they're not because they have to cash out this money somehow, I'm assuming. So
So they're day trading and gambling on their phone during in class, like
oh,
during
yeah.
school?
Well, I mean, at least not in my class, but they might be in class at least during lunch, but they are doing these things, because they always talk about, "Oh, I put money on this sports team or this and that."
Two separate things. You see the kids day trading and then they're gambling in the classroom as well.
Oh, yeah.
Two separate things?
I mean, I don't know if they're doing it during class, but they're definitely doing it outside of class or whatever. I mean,
We thought you were gonna say something like vaping or
it's sad to say that, like, I remember the vaping days. It wasn't as stressful as this, but,
wow.
yeah, no, it's pretty crazy.
Okay, so that leads into the fact that they can do something at the age, let's just call them 16 because that's what your age. All right. At 16, they've been day trading and or gambling, so they're making money
Yes.
and they're seeing that just by make spending a little time placing a few bets, there is a reward.
Yes.
And you're saying that that's now affecting how hard they're willing to work
Right.
at their education or other things because why? Because they have money. So what do I need an education for? Or
I mean, just think about it like this, right? It's just that quick feeling of like just having
yeah,
cash coming in. You didn't have to work that hard for it. You see they have these they watch these people on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, who are just super successful for really doing what? Nothing.
Nothing.
And, a lot of them think that they're going to either make it in some type of like, and again, not saying they can't, but
right.
it's just it's such an oversaturated market of kids doing the same thing. So you have kids who are like, oh, Miss Briggs, I'm gonna make it, you know, to the NBA or to the NFL, and I'm going to become TikTok famous, or I'm going to, I have this many views on here, or I'm just gonna keep doing my gambling and make all this, like they express all this stuff to me. And I think in my head, I'm like, well, what if those things don't work? What if you tear your ACL? What if you lose all your money in the stock market? What if it's like all these what ifs that they're not even thinking about because a lot of it, it's not their money that they're really gambling away or, or, you know,
Their brains are not fully developed. And
right,
so all they can think of is the impulse and the instant gratification
right,
that they're getting. So there is no ability to have a long term
right,
thought about it,
right.
right? This is where parents need to be involved and paying attention.
Yes, but Chelsea said some of these parents are involved. Like some of these parents do know that they're doing this and they give their permission.
Right, because a lot of the parents, at least from what I've heard, you hear, and again, this is just kids talking because they tell you everything. A lot of their parents are either involved in the financial world or they're giving advice on who to pick for the games and whatever. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
my gosh.
I hate to say that, but that's just the world we live in. Like that's the reality of it. Nobody's questioning how that's really affecting these kids in the long run because you start getting them hooked on something that isn't necessarily feasible And, they think, oh, I made, let's be honest, $2,000 to a kid is a lot of
Right.
money.
Yeah.
They're gonna think, "Oh, I made 2 grand and I can put in $200 into this or
Right.
$400 into this," and then they lose everything, and then they're betting against their friends. It just becomes a whole thing.
I come from a lot of experience with this. The addiction of gambling is just as serious as an addiction to drugs or alcohol. Parents, if you're listening and you're giving your kids permission to do this, I really think that you need to look at this as the beginning of the possible addiction in the long run, because the chemicals that are being released when they have a win is the same. It's the same. Their body's experiencing the same type of chemical
Dopamine,
release as when
all
they
that.
get a high. Yes. Yeah. So I'm truly flabbergasted. I mean, I
Yeah.
cannot believe that. I feel a little naive, actually, that I didn't even realize that that was such a big thing right now.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, especially like I said, a lot of this started, at least from what I've noticed, a lot of this started happening when, like, the Hard Rock released their gambling on
Yeah.
the app. And again, you can't control who's on an app. So, if a kid says, "I'm over the age of whatever," or it's connected to a parent's account, nobody's monitoring that, you know? So, that's one of the biggest issues that I've seen, at least, like, within our generation of kids coming up. And
So let me ask you this question. I know, right? It's a blur. I know as a teacher, right? You work with administration, but we're in a huge school district. So, but
right.
seeing that this is a challenge in present day time, is there education? Like, would this be something that the school board decides, you know what? We should bring in a speaker to educate the students and the parents on, state of things or, right? Doesn't it seem like, or they don't even have the time to do that?
It's just resources. We don't have enough resources in our community or our school districts. I mean, like I said, as you know, teacher pay is not anything special. You can barely get people to show up for work. I mean, we have issues with subs all the time. I mean, we can't even get a sub in the classroom half the time. So it's like you can educate these parents and kids, but it's like how much enforcement is really going on. I mean, my biggest issue, at least with the cell phones, they passed, something where you can tell I can take away a kid's phone. It's not an issue anymore. But after again experiencing a tragedy, I'm very weary of like not have letting the kids have like at least their cell phone on their person, right? Like you just want them to have
Yes.
some sense of like, okay, I can have access to my family if I need to in a heartbeat. But it's like, but then you have access to all these other things on top of it. And for me, it's like, I mean, again, I don't have children personally, but being involved with these kids for so long, I've had parents tell me in teacher parent conferences, well, they're 16 and I don't know how to, like, I can't do anything about it. And I'm like, but you pay their bills.
Yes.
I'm like,
Right.
you have access to cut off their internet during the school day. You can do a lot of things, but you're choosing not to because you think your kid's not going to like you or they're going to be upset with you. It's like
Yeah,
instead of
this is
just
where parents are afraid to be parents. They
right,
just want to be the friend.
right. And I've heard this so many. I mean, I've had parents even tell me like I'm done parenting basically. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
if you feed and put a roof over your child's head, you're still parenting them. And I mean, there's I could go on with some stories, but I won't even bring them up because it's just horrifying. But there's just things
Okay.
that
One. Just come on. Give us one.
I mean, I can tell you right now, a lot of these parents are very aware that their kids have fake IDs and allow them downtown and party it up and
Wait, they're driving them down and dropping them off to
oh
go
yeah,
to a
100
club?
driving a lot. Like someone told me the other day, a kid told me that I guess their child left their fake ID at the bar and they called the bar. The parent called the bar and said my kid's ID's there. But we might want to edit that one out or I don't know. I don't know.
No. No, this is good stuff. Like, here we thought we were just talking about teacher and what
Classroom stuff.
classroom stuff,
But
but
again,
this
this
is
is not every,
really
this isn't every kid, but it's definitely you can
no.
tell it's a
It's definitely
demographic.
happening.
It's happening and like I said,
And these are conversations parents should openly be having with their kids and their families.
Yeah.
And they need to think about it with their spouse, or if they're the only parent,
Right.
like, how do I feel about this as a parent and what do I want my rules to be? And
Right.
let's openly communicate it. Like not, oh, let's turn, blind eye.
I do understand that parents wanna know where their kids are at, and I think that's where the balance becomes a little weary because you don't want your kids sneaking out and going out with a friend to a bad situation, right? You don't want that because you wanna know where your child's at. And I also think if you're allowing your child to go into these adult situations at such a young age, you're not really, like, helping them in any sense of the word, right? Like, it's not a sense of, like, there's gotta be a sense of being 16, maybe you can do this, but you're not allowed to do this. This is what adults do, and this is what 21-year-olds do, not what 16, 17, 18-year-olds do. And it's like, I know you wanna go out with your friends and have a good time, but you have so much time to do that in college. And I think once they get to college, they've already partied majority of the time, like in real life adult situations that it's like, what else is there left?
Right. What's the next step? What's going to happen when you get
Right?
to
Like, you're
college?
either
What
gonna
will that
go
look
down
like
a
for you?
path where you are just trying to find more excitement, which is
Mhm.
not gonna be a good thing, or you're gonna be so burnt out by the time, you're in your early 20s that you're gonna be either wanting to drink all the time, you're not gonna be able to go out without vaping or doing whatever, like, it just doesn't harbor a good relationship, and you lose a lot of your young years. Like, I tell kids all the time, I'm like, "Just be a kid. This is the only time in your life you don't have to worry about anything." And you're already like, I know that need of wanting to feel like an adult and feeling like you have all this, like, freedom, and I get it. We all felt that at one point. But it's like, just you're gonna get it. It's only 2 more years, you're gonna get it. Just chill.
So we started by asking you how things have changed from your first year till now. Would you say that that's a big one that you see kids starting and exploring younger than when you first started?
I
Like
think
with
with
the
this
vaping, with the
Yeah, I mean, the vaping has always been a thing since I started. I think a lot of that was more hidden. I think kids hid that a lot more. Now I mean, I hear parents that buy it for their kids. Like, it's just a sense of wanting to be a friend. And I just think we need to start, again, I think there's healthy boundaries, right? Like, I always said that I had a healthy fear of my mother, right? Like, she wasn't horribly aggressive, but there was that sense of I didn't want to disappoint her. And I think finding that balance of not wanting to disappoint your parents, but maybe just saying like, "Hey, like my friends vape and I want to try it." And then saying, this is the reasons why you shouldn't try. Like, being able to have those open conversations without just saying, "Okay, well here, I'll get it for you. You can do it in my house. It's okay if it's as long as I know that it's going on."
right. That's definitely something I encountered a lot with my kids when they were in high school. We want to be the house that not me, but
Yeah.
parents that would be what they if they're going to do it. Let me give them a safe place to do it. I
Right,
mean,
and
that was there.
I get that mentality, but it's like a boundary situation, right? Like, your kids
Yeah.
should not want to feel the need to do that in front of you because you allow it. It should be something like kids are gonna make mistakes and they're gonna do things without you knowing, right? But, like, if there's, like, that little thing in the back of their head, like, "Well, I don't want them to find out because I don't want them to, like, be upset with me." I think parents having that healthy fear of, like, "Well, if you do this, I'm not gonna be mad at you. I'm not gonna punish you. I'm just gonna be very disappointed in your behavior." I think that hurts more than actually just yelling at them not to do it or just allowing them to do it.
Well, but I also think that there should be the fear of a consequence too, because
Yeah.
like our lives have consequences.
Yes.
And they should learn how that feels, because if you're not ever afraid, right, of a consequence, like we're taught, like breaking laws and cheating and jail, like there are serious life
Life
consequences.
consequences, yeah. I mean, it does.
And
It affects
right,
them.
how does a child learn? I mean, they have to have them
Yeah.
and break them
Right.
to learn and know how that feels.
Right, but
So
a lot of parents don't even give them the opportunity to fail. So it's like, it's like the sense of, again, I don't wanna say how people should parent because I don't know, and I don't think anyone really knows what the right thing to do all the time is, but it's just a sense of like responsible boundaries. I just think there's things that kids should not be experiencing at their age because it's not really helping them grow into successful people, it's just making them go down a path that they think is okay. And I'm sorry, but you don't want your kid to be an alcoholic at 21 years old. Like that should not be a thing. Like where they feel or just addicted to nicotine because you're just like, okay, it's as long as I buy it for you or,
Right.
you know.
So, knowing all of these things, right, from the moment you decided education or being a teacher is my thing to where you sit today, if you had to go back in time, would you do it all over again? Would you still choose the career as an educator?
I mean, I will say this, like, there's some times where I think about, "Oh, man, I'd be so much better off if I did X, Y, and Z," but, I wake up every day and I love going to work. I truly do. I don't stress, and I think before when I was doing when I was bartending and doing all these things beforehand, like, I would wake up dreading having to do the same thing every single day. Teaching really does keep me on my toes. I get to interact with kids all day that actually genuinely enjoy talking to me about life and their problems and their things and I just feel that I don't see myself I don't want to define myself as like I'm a teacher because I'm more than just a teacher, but it really does bring a big joy to my life knowing that like at least one kid like can go on and do something that they love. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, if you wake up every day and love what you do, then you'll be fine. And I'm like, I don't make a lot of
Great
money. I,
advice.
I love what I do. And not many people can say that. So
Which is amazing, right? I think as a parent, that's what you want to hear. You want to hear that when you send your children to school, that the people that are with them the most enjoy being there and
Being there.
enjoy
Yes,
doing their job.
100%. And it sounds like they are very lucky for having you.
oh, that's sweet. Yeah, no, I mean I don't know that they feel like all way all the time when I give them exams, but uh but I love them and
Listen, another life lesson.
yeah, yeah. I think just bringing them back to reality is like my biggest, lesson in the classroom. Like I try to tell them that nobody's gonna care about like like what makes you so special and so different than everybody else. Like you have to be able to find your place and what makes you happy and what's your thing, and you can't let anybody else put you in a box. And I think they put themselves in boxes a lot of the time. They think, well, I'm not good at this, so I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, or I am supposed to just do this. And they don't kind of expand onto like bigger picture. And I'm like, you guys have so many options and it's hard to see it now, but I'm like, you have so many options to do so many great things and things that make you happy. And, it's just, I think just the support system. I think having a good support system is really one of the largest things that I can encourage. Just being able to have people that love you, that show you that, whatever you choose to do, even if you fail, it's fine. Just get up and do it again, or get up and do something that makes you like that's different. I think just having that is super important.
Do you have do you keep up a lot of relationships once your kids leave the class your students leave the classroom? Do you keep up a lot? I know your relationship with Ryan, with Carrie's son, but do you have that with a lot of your students?
I do actually. So funny thing. During my wedding, I did my first look with all my former students, and that was probably the highlight of my wedding. They
How
all
many students did you have at your wedding or former students?
20 of them showed up, so that was
And
amazing.
how many did you
I have a
invite?
tear in my eye. I have a tear in my eye because I saw the pictures and
Uh,
Ryan was so blessed to and grateful to be one of them. So
Well, I love Ryan. Ryan is amazing. I mean, it's funny enough. He actually came yesterday. He was shooting the wedding. Took pictures for the wedding, and he came by and watched the girls perform for the LED dance. So he came and just the support, and I love that I can see them grow. I think that's like the biggest accomplishment for me is knowing that these kids are growing, that they're going through school. I have a lot of kids at FSU, USF, and they still keep in contact with me. And I wish I could have invited more, but it's not cheap to feed people.
right.
I'm not gonna worry. So I had to be a little selective. But knowing that they drove 5 hours because I had out of state wedding, they drove 5 hours to be there
Wow.
just kind of showed me that like I made some type of impact on their life. And
Huge,
the fact
huge
that
impact.
and it makes me, it's like that's why I do what I do. I don't do it for them to come back and see me or anything like that. It's just to know that they still need me in some small capacity to say, look what I did.
Yeah.
Like I did it. Like, you helped. And that makes me feel really good. And a lot of these kids, like, I do a lot of college advising on the side. And a lot of these kids, like, I help them through that whole process. And you can see, like, just the relationship that, forming a relationship with them, their parents, and their environment really kind of keeps them motivated. And it was such a blessing to have all those kids come and be there for that moment, just knowing that they were just happy to see their teacher get married.
Wow. It's just unbelievable. And listening to you talk about how much, I mean, it's clear how much you love your students and love what you do. So it's really not surprising that they want to keep coming back to you. You've built such a strong relationship with these kids that they want to keep you in their life.
Yeah, no,
In their life.
yeah, no, it's honestly incredible. And like I said, my biggest thing is being able to see their journey and see them become successful in their own right is just, I mean, it's priceless. You can't put a price on that. So,
I think we might have just come up with a title for our episode, something with priceless.
nice.
Yeah.
Priceless education, but
Oh, I like
yeah,
it.
yeah. Anyway, we want to thank you so much for spending your day off from teaching with us today. Actually, when it launches, it's not going to be a day off from teaching. But anyway, recorded on a day off from teaching. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And
A lot
I,
of eye-opening
yes,
discussions here.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you.
No
and
problem.
I now just thought of a new name for you because I couldn't figure it out at the beginning what to call you. But I think you've just earned the title of Mama Briggs.
Oh, thank you.
So
Well, of
thank
course.
you for
Well, thank you
everything
guys
for
for
being
having
here.
me. And I want to leave
Thank
on
you
this
for being here.
note. You guys are doing a great podcast. I think it's so important for parents to hear the other like perspectives and side of things. And I don't think they get that very often, especially, you can't get that in a newsletter. So I think what you guys are doing is really impactful. And I really appreciate you giving the parents a perspective of different viewpoints. I think it's super important for them to know a little bit more about what's going on in their child's lives and just being able to help in whatever way they can.
Thank you for saying that, Mama
Yeah,
Briggs.
yeah. All right. Well, that concludes our episode today. Please listen, like, and share with a friend. And if you have any questions or future episodes, topics you want to hear, feel free to reach out to us at info@parentcoachesunleashed.com. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed with Carrie and Jessica. Together, we can raise the next generation of independent, capable, and compassionate young adults.
We encourage you to send us an email with questions and feedback to info@parentcoachesunleashed.com. Please remember, you are not alone on this parenting journey.